Hello and welcome to our channel. As the Milan-Cortina Winter Olympics move closer with the promise of sport, unity, and international celebration, Italy instead finds itself at the center of a rapidly escalating political storm after confirmation that agents from the United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, widely known as ICE, will be deployed to support U.S. diplomatic security during the Games. A revelation that has sparked widespread outrage, fierce political debate, and public protests across the country. Because for many Italians, this decision feels far less like routine international cooperation and far more like an alarming intrusion into national sovereignty at a moment meant to showcase Italy's democratic values on the world stage. While the U.S. Department of Homeland Security has repeatedly insisted that ICE agents will not conduct immigration enforcement operations on Italian soil, and will instead operate strictly in a limited, behind-the-scenes security capacity under full Italian authority, working alongside the U.S. State Department's Diplomatic Security Service and Italian officials to assess threats and mitigate risks from transnational criminal organizations. Critics argue that such assurances fail to address the deeper issue, which is a powerful and controversial symbolism ICE now carries globally following years of aggressive immigration crackdowns in the United States, intensified under President Donald Trump's administration, and especially in the wake of two fatal shootings in Minneapolis involving ICE agents, incidents that have shocked public opinion and fueled protests accusing the agency of excessive force, lack of accountability, and a militarized approach to law enforcement. This context has transformed ICE from a bureaucratic federal agency into a lightning rod for international criticism, making its presence in an event as globally visible as the Olympics deeply unsettling for many in Italy, including prominent political leaders who have spoken out with unusual bluntness, such as former Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte, who accused the current government of bowing to U.S. pressure and called on Italy to set our own limits, warning that allowing ICE agents to play any role in Olympic security risks eroding democratic principles and normalizing the presence of a foreign force associated in the public imagination with violence and repression. These concerns have been echoed even more forcefully at the local level by Milan's mayor, Giuseppe Sala, whose city will be one of the Olympic hosts, when he declared that Milan does not need ICE and that the agents are not welcome, going so far as to describe the agency as the militia that kills, and questioning whether Italy still has the courage to say no to Washington without causing a diplomatic incident, a statement that resonated deeply with many Italians who see this issue as a test of national dignity rather than a technical security matter. Other lawmakers, including veteran politician Carlo Calenda, have gone even further, warning that ICE agents must not set foot in Italy and labeling the agency violent, unprepared, and out of control as petitions circulate online. Protests are discussed in civic groups, and Italian media devotes relentless coverage to examining exactly what ICE's role would be, who authorized it, and whether the Italian government has the legal or moral authority to block it. Meanwhile, Foreign Minister Antonio Tajani has attempted to calm the situation by emphasizing that ICE agents will not patrol streets or carry weapons in public, stressing that they will work inside operations rooms on counterterrorism and intelligence coordination, and insisting that all security operations remain firmly under Italian command. Yet his comments, including controversial historical comparisons meant to reassure listeners, have only added fuel to the fire, as critics argue that the issue is not whether ICE agents will be visible on the streets, but whether their presence at all undermines Italy's commitment to a security model rooted in transparency, accountability, and civilian control. The controversy has also exposed divisions within Italy's broader political landscape, placing Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni in an increasingly difficult position as she tries to balance the demands of an important alliance with the United States, Italy's role within NATO, and the practical realities of international counterterrorism, cooperation against growing domestic pressure from opposition leaders, city officials, and ordinary citizens who feel their government is failing to defend national sovereignty at a critical moment. Adding another layer to the story are the reactions of Americans living in Italy, particularly Milan, many of whom have expressed confusion, embarrassment, and concern about how their country is perceived abroad, with several U.S. citizens speaking anonymously to media outlets out of fear of retaliation, questioning why an immigration enforcement agency would need to be involved in Olympic security in a foreign country at all, and worrying that the move reflects poorly on the United States at a time when its domestic and foreign policies are already under intense global scrutiny. Supporters of the deployment argue that security threats today are global, that transnational criminal networks and potential terrorist risks require close international cooperation, and that federal agencies like Homeland Security Investigations, a branch of IC, have supported U.S. diplomatic security at previous Olympic Games without controversy, making the Milan deployment a continuation of established practice rather than a radical departure. Yet opponents counter that historical precedent cannot be separated from present reality, pointing out that IC today operates under a far more aggressive mandate and carries a far heavier political and moral burden than it did in the past. At its heart, this debate has become about far more than Olympic security, evolving into a broader conversation about the limits of foreign influence, the export of domestic policing models across borders, and the responsibility of democratic governments to consider not only practical security needs, but also public trust and symbolic meaning, especially during an event as globally significant as the Olympics, which are meant to embody peace, cooperation, and share human values. As the opening ceremony approaches, unanswered questions continue to hang in the air, including whether the Italian government will revise or restrict ICE's role, whether mounting public pressure will force a clearer stance from Prime Minister Meloni, and whether this controversy will leave a lasting mark on Italy's political landscape and its relationship with the United States. Because regardless of how it is resolved, the IC deployment has already transformed the Milan-Cortina Winter Olympics into a powerful symbol of our times, revealing deep anxieties about power, security, and democracy in a world where the boundaries between national sovereignty and international cooperation are increasingly blurred, and where even a celebration of sport can become a battleground for some of the most pressing political and moral questions of the modern era.